known as a cheater, gray area rule reader, promoters hate me, whatever. I get aggravated sometimes going to a derby and you get in there and you get in the tech line and they look at you like you're doing something towards them, but it's just called competitiveness. You know, you work harder to be better. That's what the world's supposed to be built on, but today it's not. You know, everybody's looking for a free ride. What I'd like to compare is some rule sets from different promoters based on the same area of the bar. And let's see how each one writes it different. And that's kind of how I find my gray areas. So if you're running Smash It, or you're running Hardcore, or you're running Derby Icons, or whoever you're going to run for, you know, simple as a 1-inch all thread through the core support, through the hood. Depends on how you read that rule. She's going to bring up a couple of rules here. Come on. Okay, know what I got to do. I'm going with, this is what we're going to go through today. Rule set comparison, optimizing your performance by I had it before you. Card choice and winning details, which a lot of it starts with the first thing we're going to cover. Oh, we got more. Winning team show ingredients. Nope. 1-inch all thread through the hood. Let's read some of these rules. You're going to read them for me. Remember, that was your job.
So, rule set comparison, 1-inch all thread through the hood. Front core support may be used as 2 spots up to 1-inch all thread. All thread may run through frame rail. If that was the factory OEM position of the bike.
So this rule, when I read this rule, what I'm seeing is we're allowed 1-inch all thread through the core support. This promoter, whoever it may be, told us we had to run it through the factory position of the body mount. There's really not a lot of gray area, is there? I mean, for what they're trying to achieve through the hood. And it counts as 2 of your hold downs for your hood. But it has to run through the factory. I mean, yeah, you can look at it. Front core support may be used as 2 of the spots, 1-inch all thread, blah, blah, blah. All thread may run through the frame rail and factory OEM position of the body mount. I know what you're thinking, but I don't see a ton of gray area to do any kind of real crazy creative stuff here. So this promoter's kind of on spot, but not 100%, but it's, let's go to the next one. You'll see it when I bring it to your attention.
So the second rule is, may use 1-inch all thread through the front 2 body mounts. Rad support mounting holes. This counts as 2 attachment points. The other 4 must be sheet metal to sheet metal with no larger than a 5/8 by 5-inch long bolt.
So looking at this, the first thing I see is the word may, not must. So when I read that rule, it says may use 1-inch all thread. So what I've created and I've got past twice with it is in this rule. I mean, everybody's fighting these pointy bumpers today, clearing your radiator, whatever it may be. So if you take this rule, it says may use it, don't say must. And you take your front 2 core support mounts, spacers, whatever it may be, and if you follow them with the rest of the body mount rule throughout the whole car, whether it be 5/8, half, whatever you're using, and follow that rule and bolt that down using that rule, that's still just considered one of your body mounts. And you take your 1-inch all thread, it don't tell you where you got to start from. I've been starting out towards the front of my bumper, coming up 6 inches, bending it, carrying it across, turning it, and bringing it right up the front of the core support, bringing it through the hood. So when these pointies come across, catch the top of the lumber, go to jump it, it'll hook the top of that pointy and slow them down. It ain't gonna stop them. But the key word I think leaving in here is these guys said may use the 1-inch all thread, you know, through the front two body mounts. It says may use it. But then when you look in the hood, you're allowed to use them two hold downs. It's not a must, it's a may. You know, there's two different rule comparisons. These guys say through the body mount holes. These guys don't say through directly, they says to the body mounts. If you read it, you can see it. Go to the other ones. When I'm at home reading them, I can see it. In front of people, I'll miss it.
So this one's for the hood. Hood can be bolted down in 6 places, 4 spots from sheet metal to sheet metal, and 2 front body mounts that may extend through the hood using 1-inch all thread max.
There it is again, may. It's not a must. So I create that same, and one of these is one of the shows I ran, and that's, you know, and I showed it to them, they looked at it, and they understood where I was coming from. I didn't go behind the core support, I didn't go down frame rails. I don't think it was offensive. Some promoters might look at it different, but there's certain words that you can kind of, and that's how I usually find a gray area. And I'm not getting into this, that, this, that. This is something basic that you can work with. This maybe slow some of these pointy bumpers coming down in there to rip your radiators out. You know, running the motors we run today ain't $50 motors anymore, or whatever. You got thousands and thousands of dollars on the hood, and we can't protect them. Go to the next one. I think there was 4 here.
Hood bolts may pass through core support if using 1-inch all thread in the core support. This counts as 2 of your hood hold downs, and all thread may not be sleeved or connected to core support other than core support mount.
So what do you consider the core support mount? It's the hole, correct? The little bracket. Not on the frame though. It's the core. We're talking specifically about the core support. So it's the hole in the core support. So if you want to do it with this rule, because it says hood bolts may pass through the core support. And there's another one, may, and don't say must. If using 1-inch all thread in the core support, this counts as 2 of the hood hold downs. The all thread may not be sleeved or connected to the core support other than the core support mount. So you're not able to connect this all thread to your core support, period. I mean, you can lay it up against it, but it says core support. Right, let's see, yeah. So I think you can do the same thing, but your spacer, you can kind of get a hole into it, you can go into it, come up through your core support, come on up through your hood, come out through there, and bring it around. It depends on if they allow you to weld these spacers fast. That's the key thing, if your spacer is allowed to be welded fast or not, and how you can utilize this 1-inch all thread to your advantage, basically for 20 bumpers. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Let's go to the engines. Engine mounting and rule set comparison. Everybody's got different ways to mount their engines, what they're doing. And mostly, we base this off of what the rule promoter allows us how to mount them or what we're allowed to use. Go ahead and read that.
Engine may be mounted using a lower cradle with a front plate and pulley protector. The engine must be mounted to the frame using rubber OEM frame mounts or similar aftermarket frame mounts with rubber bushing. These mounts must remain working, no pinning rubber mounts or running solid mounts.
Any of you guys see the problem with that rule? Yeah, that's not a big deal. They ain't gonna see it if you do it anyways. What's the key factor if that dumb thing gets out of the way? Engine may be mounted using a lower cradle with a front plate and pulley protector. It don't say what one of them you can use to mount your engine with. Okay? So engine must be mounted to the frame using rubberoid mounts. Well, in this aspect, is this the frame? Is this the frame? Is any of these the frame? Is any of this the frame? No. This is your frame. A promoter will say to you, well, no. If you're running an old iron 9802, this is the frame. Well, no, that's the engine cross member. Because when I go back in and I look at your gas tank rule, and your gas tank rule, says package tray. Because he's going to tell me, well, this is welded to the frame, so it's part of the frame. Well, why did you go back into your gas tank protector rule in the package tray, and you take that package tray, and you describe it and everything you want us to do with it? So, with me running a set of rules like this, why wouldn't you mount your engine to your frame? Does it tell you how many mounts you can have? Absolutely not. Because there is shows today out there that allow you to run multiple mounts. More than 2. Right or wrong. I mean, do they allow you to run up to 4 mounts some places? You're not running to an engine cross member, engine saddle. Usually promoters really highlight within 4 to 6. We'll see some. Flip up another one.
Solid motor mounts permitted. Mounts may be spaced half-inch max to gain clearance of center link. Motor mount plates cannot exceed 8 by 8 inches and cannot tie into the frame rails. These are for mounting purposes only. Abuse it, you lose it.
This promoter tells me I can't tie it into the frame rail. The last promoter told me I had to mount it to the frame. I mean, that's how I found the gray area. It's blatant, it's visible. Always look and compare promoters. I mean, I'll roll up another one.
Engine must be mounted with 4 inches of factory location, within 4 inches of factory location, engine cross member only. Motor mounts can't be welded in. No solid or oversized motor mount.
This promoter says engine cross member only. So he's defining the engine cross member. Within 4 inches of the factory mount. Go to the next one. Okay, so that covers them 3, but there is one promoter out there this year that had that rule wrote. Now, am I going to be that guy when I show up there and I'm tied into the frame rails, and not the engine saddle, or do I have multiple motor mounts? Because every one of them the same mounts. I mean, everybody knows most vehicles come with 2 motor mounts. But you run a Camry, how many mounts do they got? 4. You run a Lumina, how many mounts do they have? 4. Well, they got 3. They got your bottom, you got your 2 uppers, 3, but you still got your transmission. So, okay, say 3. I mean, most guys say big cars, but I can get into some old big cars, old stuff that had motor mounts on the sides and motor mounts up front. Some real weird, crazy stuff, But that's kind of where I touch base on that stuff. What's that? 2 in the front, 2 in the, that's 4. Right, but there's 4 motor mounts. So if I showed up at a show, especially now that we're into this, what are we in, super stock? Basically, we're in the super stock era, no protectors. And I mount off my pulley protector, 2 mounts up front. And I come back, and who simplifies a lower cradle today? I mean, it started out as this, but then it went to this, and this went to that, and this guy's changed this, and this. So when a promoter writes a rule, lower cradle, well, I don't know how you even determine a lower cradle anymore without saying not past this point or whatever. Some guys don't have that. Then they try to put pictures up, a month before the show. This is what we're looking for. Well, it's too late. The car's already built. Don't do this to your drivers. Don't abuse them. I just gave that promoter heck just a little bit ago. I didn't think it was right. But that's how I kind of find them gray areas in the rules. You look for certain words, you compare promoters' rules. When we went to Las Vegas, they said 1 inch gap between fixed plates. When I went to a certain promoter around here and I showed up, I asked, well, you gotta have a gap in there. He said, nowhere in your rules says you gotta have a gap. Well, Pete, if you would have called more, we'd have told you that. Oh, it wasn't in black and white, but this is what we want. I loaded my car and went home. But that's how that goes, you know, you just, it's aggravating to be a guy like me to go to shows and try to build cars. And there's a lot of you guys here. You know, you just might not be at that level yet, or you're working to that level. There's a lot of great young guys coming up in this sport. And I just hope these promoters don't ruin it for you. Because they darn near got it ruined for me. I don't even hardly want to run for any of them more. They beg me to come, but I won't. And it's really not the promoter's fault. It's who they hire and who works for them. It's not. I don't ever deal with the promoter directly. I always deal with who we hire. You know, and it's a tough game to play. And we're still friends. At the end of the day, I kind of wipe it off. Yeah, I got $30,000, $40,000 in the bill, whatever it may be at the time, the expenses to travel. I mean, I'm kind of getting off course, but this sport is a mess right now. And I don't know how they're going to fix it, but they got to figure something out. They got way too many classes, and they're trying to fill all these classes, and there's only certain guys that fill certain classes. And I'm seeing that big circle coming. We went away from protectors, we went away from this, now we got back to a trans brace because everybody was bitching they're breaking transmissions got so expensive. Now they're giving trans braces back, everybody's gonna start breaking blocks. But today you can't go out and buy a block. You can use an OEM factory GM block, but the guys that are running dark blocks and buying this, you can't buy them. So now you're breaking your most expensive thing in your car. Next year, we're going to be back to protectors. You know, if they would have just learned how to write the rule for that protector that's in that car and mount it, so they didn't want it to do what it did, everybody could have kept running the same thing. Instead of making a guy spend $2,000, well, today it might be $3,000 for a protector, and he threw it in the garage corner, and now it ain't no good for 2 years, but it'll be able to use it after that. It's just, things are goofed up. It does, it's just a big circle. We've seen it now. I've been in it for 32 years, and I've watched it go from stock to outlaw, back. Now we're on that middle of the road to going back to full kicker again in probably 5 years. What's that? Yeah, it's cycled. It's been around. Optimized.
Good job. Okay over there.
Don't embarrass the poor girl. She didn't do it. Whoever set the table up didn't set it up right.
You're not the furniture.
What else are we supposed to cover? Right. Well, optimizing your performance. What I feel a lot of guys might miss or skip. I've been to a lot of derbies and I see guys with ball joints sticking out. You know, maybe after they ran, especially if you're running 2 times. First thing you want to do, a lot of guys overlook it. Go back under your car with that wrench. Go through your ball joints, your tire rod ends. Do that little stuff. You'll find every one of them's loose just about. Because they've been tweaked and the hole's been torqued and everything else, your nuts are loose. Be careful what nut you use. If you're using a castle nut, use a certain castle nut. I mean, if you're playing with tire rod ends, ball joints, a lot of the little short ones like this that's got tall ears on, they'll split and break. And you'll get out of the car and you're wondering why your ball joint looks 100% fine, but there's nuts gone because your nut broke. Find good quality nuts, cover them certain good areas. Before I leave home, I always get my tool cart. I pick an end of the car and I go from end to end, going back through and checking every nut and bolt, drive shaft bolt, just making sure I did everything. And all the way down to I do pinion, stuff that I didn't even put in the car, but I double check, whatever rear end you got. Check out the bolt that you bought that rear end from that guy. Just go through and double check. Pull your wheels off. Check your keepers that hold your axles in. Go through them. I mean, mini car guys, I'm not a big mini car guy, I've only ran 2 in my life, but same thing. go through and check all your nuts and bolts, you know, check your spacings, whatever you gotta do. Check all your motor mounts, make sure the motors ain't rotted out of them and walked out of them. Take a jack, you know, the motor, move it on the mini car, guys. There's a lot of things you can do to really optimize your performance at the end of the day. That's kind of what I call optimizing my performance. I mean, I even opened the hood 2 years ago. I checked bolt, carburetor bolt, nuts and bolts. I had one that was sticking out that far. Don't ask me how. I ran the motor twice. The carburetor's never been apart. They had one hanging out of the back bolt that far. I'm like, how's that possible? I go down through and I check all my linkages, everything I put on, stuff that's been on the car. I mean, there's guys in this room that could probably say, well, yeah, I ran 2 derbies and that never loosened up. But all of a sudden, here it is loose, you know, and it's, how did it get loose? Well, you're abusing this stuff, you know, the torque and the twist from these engines. I don't care if you're running a 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder, it happens to them all. That's kind of how I optimize, check everything. Don't be afraid, just take that. I know everybody's car's never done before, never. I don't think any of us ever had a car totally done the way we felt it should be going to a derby. You know, it's good enough, but nobody's ever had a car totally done. You think it's done, but then you're like, oh man, I should really change that. I was like, yeah, no, I guess not. I'm not gonna change it. You know, you get a little lazy because you're wore out. You've had a lot of time to work into it. I'm guilty of it. I've done it. Not many times, but I've done it. That's the key to, you know, really optimizing your performance, keeping your car going. You know, always change your fuel filters. You know, because you don't know what you're getting from that fuel station or out of that barrel. I don't care what fuel you're running. Always check them fuel filters. All your fuel pumps today, 90% of them got a screen in them. A lot of guys don't know that. There's a little screw onto them. Take that out. Check that screen. That can be plugged up. There's a lot of different things. Change your hose. Don't leave your hose on your car, like, depending on what kind of fuel line. 2 or 3 years max, throw it away. You know, it's just, that stuff don't last. I really can't think of too many other things. Yeah. Car choice, that's basic. I mean, drivers that are here know their car choice by looking at a rule set. A lot of times the rule set, if you look at it, every rule set that's out there benefits one car other than another. That's why I started running little new models, because a lot of the rule sets today, depending on downlight positions, you know, whatever it may be, you know, lengths of plate, you know your car that you read into the rule set, you figure out what car that would benefit the most. I mean, that's kind of that's how you pull your car choice. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Winning details, the key to winning details is a lot of seat time. You know, I mean, it's hard to replace seat time. You know, you look at a guy like Rick Clark, you know, Tony Godwin, Daryl Mondoon, you know, there's a lot of guys in here that's got a lot of seat time. And you get in behind them guys, you're going to have your hands full driving against them. You know, that's you got to learn the seat time is going to help you a lot. So the more you run, the better you're going to get. You might suck when you first start, but you know, you're guaranteed to get better if you work hard at it. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can kind of do to, I mean, I think the next one we'll touch on it more so than winning details. Winning any show ingredient. I feel the core of winning any show is the guys that you've got in your corner. And I'm not talking the guy on the track. I'm talking about the guys that help you in the garage. The guys that go to the derby with you. The guys that are there. You need to have the best that you could possibly have on deck when you're, whatever level you might be competing at. I mean, they come up with teams to go, but I'm just saying I don't care if it's your county fair all the way to the biggest show you'll ever run in your life. I feel the key to that is taking your best men. It's no different than going to war. You want the best standing alongside you. Because you don't want to be bothered when that car comes out of that arena, no matter where you are. You shouldn't have to go around and see everything that's done wrong with that car and then put a guy. You need a group of guys that know that level of build. And you need to let them, you give them an area, and that's their area. You know, you work on your own area. Everybody has their own part. And it's the same thing if you're traveling and you've got to rent. You know, you look at Blizzard Bash, these guys with the tents and all this. The driver really shouldn't do that. You should put somebody in charge of that. Because as a driver, you've got enough to worry about. You need to put somebody in charge of that. We went to Las Vegas. We put Casey Smith. He's not a driver, but he took care of so much of our stuff. One of our teammates had a transportation company, which was a huge help. You know, got our cars out there. We were able to fly out. We didn't have to drive. Casey took we rented compressors. As a driver, I was still able to stay home and concentrate and get my car done and not worry about anything else. And when we got there, the cars were already there. The transport company got them there. Everything was there. All of our equipment was there. I didn't do any of it. That guy did. So if you try to do everything on your own, from running your pits, stalls, to driving the car, and it's hard to put all that on your plate and still be at the top of your game. You need a solid team when you're going to the Derby. I don't care what county fair, you need to have that. I guess that. What?
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't think anybody's gonna have much of a question.
How many bottles of Pixie Dust do you have autographed?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of guys are hoping I was gonna get, and I want to do this totally different. But I was kind of told.
This is for the question.
Right. I was gonna actually take rules this year of shows that are coming up, and I was gonna chew them up, throw a bunch of gray areas out there for drivers. But how is it fair that you guys have them, but maybe them gentlemen down there run the same class and they don't have them? Why can't everybody have them? Because it goes back to the same thing I said before. I don't care if I got a Pinto and you got an Impala, it's hard to replace that seat time. I've seen guys take the worst jump. And there's a guy, I don't know, I've seen his brother here, but I don't see the other. Brett Rowley, is Brett in here or no? Corey, is Brett in here?
He's out there.
Perfect example, look at Las Vegas. He had the most underbuilt car. We gave him 2 weeks to build it. And he was my second guy right there with me at the end. The car was junk. But the man knows how to wheel a car, no matter what it is. You know, you got to go against them. I don't care. You're gonna have troubles, you know. And that's why I always said, I'm not afraid. Somebody comes to my pit area and asks me questions. I'll tell them everything I've done to the car. I'll show them everything I've done to the car. And I don't hide anything because I still believe that I can beat you on the track, outdrive you. You can have the same exact car, and that don't intimidate me at all. I just feel I can outdrive you and still win that derby. So it's definitely seat time, big key. You know, if you can run 3-4 times a year financially, just do it. And every year you're just going to get better and better and better. He is driveline. It is. Today days with horsepower and pushing and carrying on, yeah, I would say definitely driveline is a big key. What's that? What runs one of the steers for sure. But I still think there's some old timers out here that got motors that ain't got hardly much money in.
You do reliable.
Right, reliable.
You don't need 1,000 horse.
Nope.
He's all got to say.
Reliable.
But I've also seen people handle them for a long time.
That's all.
And it comes back to driveline.
Well, it comes back to drive line and it comes back to seat time. What you need to do. I watched some derbies over the last gentleman, younger gentlemen, lose their steering and they just don't know how to use that dead car to their advantage to turn them or whatever it may be, or use the wall or they just keep going back and forth, you know, and then all of a sudden the car will do something and they don't know it did it. And then they panic and they really start flying back and forth. And now the car's just doing circles and it just won't go straight. They let off the gas and go straight. Well, I just did a circle at high speed, and then I let off the gas and the thing will creep down the track straight. Well, let's gas it, get it where we want, and then go slow. You know, all it's all about is making contact. Seat time is key.
That's key, that's one thing with Brown, he's a mental guy, you will never know his steering control. He'll drive the whole derby like he has steering. And then what? He's like,
I watched his brother, and this is no murder lie around home. He'll shut, if he thinks that 30 seconds or 45 seconds will make a difference, I've watched that man shut his car off in the middle of the derby because the radiator's broke. Said there 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. And when he gets to about 40 Mississippi, refire it, make another hit and shut the car off and do it again.
There he is, right there.
Yeah, that's the guy right there. That can drive a wheelbarrow to the wind. But yeah, you just can't replace seat time. I mean, I don't care if you can go out here and spend 30 grand a day and buy everything and think you're going to win a derby and get a run right over. And don't be afraid to message me. I answer a lot of questions throughout the year to young guys starting. How would you do this? What do you think about it? I get older gentlemen now asking me about certain cars, but you know, should I tilt this type of car? Should I do this? Should I do that? I just give my opinion. I mean, I've tried a lot of things that didn't work, and I tried a lot of things that did work. And I'm not afraid to give advice to guys getting started and coming up. So I love this youth program. I think it's the greatest thing in the world, but I kind of disagree with having all these multiple classes. Because you need the better guy. Bring that younger guy up, is what I'm trying to say on the youth. So we're separating our youth classes. We never had a youth class. I got thrown in with the baddest. I got my butt whipped and whooped because I was a little wise ass back then, you know. So these kids got it made. I don't see where we should separate, but I guess. Well, it's just no child left behind program we got going on. We didn't have that. We got our butts whooped. Right.
Well, we weren't driving at 10 years old either. Like these kids are.
Yeah, and they don't have their dad's
Yeah, they
30,
16.
40 years experience.
Exactly.
And
$10,000 motor under the hood.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they got all that already ahead of them.
so they got to be good right off the bat.
Right.
If they can drive, they can be good drivers.
Right. But how do they learn how to drive? Because Pops let them drive everything at home. Drive the lawnmower, drive the snow, drive whatever. Excavator, bulldozers, everything. I mean, Brett let this kid, I thought he was nuts for years. He'd let Preston at 6 years old get on an excavator or get on, just mind-boggling. I'd be scared to death he'd get hurt, but he wasn't. Now look at the kid, he can drive anything. He's driving 18-wheelers. You know, at 9 years old, or 10 or 11, or whatever he is, I don't know. But
You know what the biggest thing for me was? Go-kart for my son. At an early age.
right.
And then he was out there doing donuts. And I taught him how to drift. And counter steer. And all that. When he was 5, 6 years old. Out there running that go-kart. I mean, he beat the hell out of him. Out there cutting the wheel, drifted, mashed the throttle.
Oh, it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Yeah, but you don't know how to race track.
The key thing is seat time. But I'm done doing this. I don't like doing this stuff. They talk me into it, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'm glad you support SMW. I appreciate everything you guys are doing here. Have a great afternoon.